So once you have your plan laid out, your action plan for the year, the last piece is to simply implement your plan as you go. So for example, it's not good enough to go to a single workshop, right? If you want to develop your writing skills, you may go to a workshop on writing a grant proposal, but simply going to the workshop probably is not going to result in a lot of strong skill development for you. What I encourage you to do is think about the strategies that you might take to get training in that skill. So learn new strategies for improving that skill. Then make sure that you practice the skill. But practicing itself might end up meaning practicing things that are not the best behaviors or the best practice of the skill. So also make sure that you get feedback. So if you think about it, there's a framework for developing a skill, which is a 3-part framework. One is to get training or learn new strategies. Second is to practice the skill. And the third is to get feedback.
So a great thing about being a graduate student is that one has endless opportunities to practice. So think about this as in a relationship to going to a gym and having a personal trainer take you over to some fancy machine and say, so this machine, you know, you're going to develop your quads. So sit down and have a try at this and try to do 10 reps. And you sit down and you're dead. You know, you do 2 reps and you think, I gotta leave, this is too embarrassing, I'm never gonna be able to do this. And 2 weeks later, you're doing 3 sets of 10, right? So when you were in an environment like this in graduate school, it's like living in the gym. You know, that's both graduate students and postdocs. The opportunities to get better at those skills are all around us, all the time. You know, you go to a group meeting and you hash out the experiments of friends, of your colleagues in the laboratory. Your advisor asks you to help review a paper that's come to him or her for review for a journal. You work on writing a grant section. And every single one of those things is an opportunity to kind of ramp up that skill set. And that's a great opportunity.
Something else that can help you accomplish your plan is to think about how to hold yourself accountable. When I was in the lab, I often used this principle to get my paper done. So my research advisor may or may not have kept me on strict timeline. But I knew that I wanted to get the paper out, and it was important to him too. So what I did was I thought about a way to hold myself accountable towards completing that paper. I came up with my own accountability plan. When I met with him, I told him, you and I have decided that we're going to move this paper forward. Next week, I'll bring to our meeting together the figures for the paper, and I'd really like to discuss that rough draft of figures with you, and that'll help me map out the outline for the rest of the paper. Now, he may or may not have remembered that conversation. He was very busy, but just knowing that I had told him that I would commit to bring those figures to the next meeting meant that I was going to follow through. But I want you to remember that part of having a plan is having a heightened awareness of what other opportunities come along so that you can change your plan and adapt as you need to. It can sometimes feel difficult to adapt or change your plan. Some people feel like they should really hold on and stick with it. Once you check that gut feeling and you decide, yes, that's the right thing to do, then think of that as a deliberate decision and stick with that decision. Really own it. In that moment of time, given the information that you have, that was the right decision to make.
I've had to modify my research plans a fair amount over the course of my thesis research. I think basically everyone that I've talked to in graduate school has had that experience.
My qualifying exam project is way different than what my project is now, but I'm really seeing the fruits of my labor, but I just haven't planned for it.
For me specifically, one example that I can think of is figuring out the type of experiment to round out a paper. And so in my case, to round out a paper, I could do a very technically challenging genome editing experiment that incorporated some data that I had collected over the course of my project that I tried and actually am still trying for 2.5 to 3 years that still has just not worked. And so after around, a year of trying this type of thing and having it not pan out, you basically start to think of other ways that you might be able to round out the paper or round out the project. And so the plan shifted from trying this very, very difficult experiment, investing a lot of resources into doing that, to taking a different approach where we approach the same problem bioinformatically. And so one just has to be adaptable in terms of conceiving of and changing your plan based on the realities of science.
Part of science is about discovery, unexpected variables emerging that one can pursue and discover something new, changing your mind in the face of new evidence. And so I think it's very important to have some degree of plan in order to set yourself on a trajectory towards something that appears desirable in the moment, but also have a willingness to shift from that trajectory and an awareness that that can and probably must happen if you're really developing as a scientist along the way.